This is The Therapist's Couch with Virginia Corbett, licensed counselor, where professional insight supports personal growth. Join us for authentic conversations that inspire growth, healing, and hope. Welcome back to The Therapist's Couch. Today, in our Calm Code series, we talk about how to stay grounded when life feels like a storm. Virginia and Anna introduce us to our internal fire alarm and share specific tools like tapping and cold therapy to help you move from survival mode into thriving. Let's begin.
Today we're gonna finish up our Calm Code, which I think has been super eye-opening and just kind of, I feel like in our last episode talking about the importance of boundaries and the impact that it has on our relationships, but also overall well-being in our physical health as well. So I'm excited to take this a little further.
I am too. And I think the Calm Code is so important. The Calm Code. And it really is meaningful to me because I work really hard to have my little protective space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I work really hard to have that kind of place of peace.
Right.
And protect that place of peace and hone that place of peace. And in today's world, you know, you're thinking about Calm Code, and today's episode is grounded in the storm and staying calm when life isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And you can almost count on it that life won't always be calm. And the world seems to want us to the world wants our clicks.
Unfortunately.
They want that fear. They want that stress. So we really have to fight against it. And today we're going to talk a little bit about being grounded.
Yeah. And I think we have a lot of good coping skills, a lot of good ways. And hopefully we can get into some of those today of just in the moment, how can you make sure that you are staying grounded?
Yeah. So being grounded, I love the idea of to me, detoxing, emotional detox. I love physical detox. I used to have a juice store and we sold detoxes, like juice detoxes. And I love the idea of thinking about our body is so beautifully made. And it's just a giant filter system. You know, our lungs are filtering air. Our blood is, filtering, our blood is getting filtered. And just our body is, everything about our body filters the toxicness from the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we also can filter out toxic emotions,
right.
Toxic feelings. And life is good. Life is beautiful. And we really can work hard at not letting toxic emotions, toxic energy steal our peace.
Definitely. I think it's a very important life skill to have because you only get once.
Yeah. And it keeps you authentic,
mm-hmm.
Being able to lean into who you are and not be defensive of who you are, being able to have the calm, to be able to do a little bit of self-awareness and some soul searching. That's really important to growing as a person.
Definitely.
So the three areas that we'll cover today, we'll cover the biology of stress. We're going to cover anchors and grounding, some of the things that we use to anchor. And then we're going to talk about returning to calm, like how when you get out of your calm space, what do you do to return?
Right. So biology of stress, really fast. We talked about in our vagus nerve episode, how the part of our brain, our amygdala, being that internal fire alarm. And so when that's being activated, all of the dysregulation that comes along with that. And we know that stress is very, very bad for our bodies, but also to our brains. And I know, again, we've talked about the importance of implementing those boundaries, because when our boundaries are being respected, our dopamine increases, our serotonin increases, and it makes our brains want to do those healthy habits more frequently.
Yeah, one thing I really liked when you talked about the amygdala, you called her.
I did.
You personalized.
I called her Amy. Yes. But Amy, she's on high alert for a lot of things. And I think training our brain to, things are going to happen. we're allowed to feel our feelings, but also learning how to re-regulate after that is what's key. Because like I said, things are going to happen in life.
Yeah,
it's inevitable.
yeah.
Not every day is going to be the happiest, best day ever. However, knowing what to do when we're not feeling 100%, when we're experiencing that stress or overwhelm, what to do and how to handle that in order to recover somewhat quickly.
You know, when you were talking about Amy, or Amygdala calling her Amy, I'm feeling a little compassion for her. She's got a big job.
She does have a big job. I think she might take it a little too seriously, to be honest, right?
But calm down, Amy.
Yeah, chill. We're okay. We are okay. So learning how to tell Amy we're okay.
Yeah. So that biology is stress and telling Amy we're okay. You know, she's just trying to help. She's just trying to help. She's trying to identify any possible thing that could ever possibly go wrong so we can get on top of it.
Right. The issue with that is when our amygdala is when Amy's freaking out, the prefrontal cortex, the logic, critical thinking part of our brain, it completely shuts down. And so that is why it is so important to be able to re-regulate and to calm back down, because when our body's on high alert, when our fire alarm is going off, we lose the ability to think critically and problem solve.
Interesting. So Amy loses her mind and takes all the energy from our body and nothing else can be done.
Right. Right.
So we can't enjoy life. We can't be calm. All of our resources go to keep Amy from her little panic.
Yes.
Her little tailspin that she's in.
So the thing that I typically tell my clients, first things first, name it to tame it. So what am I feeling right now? Is it anxiety? Is it stress? Is it anger? Is it frustration? Just identifying what it is that you're feeling can greatly decrease, the overall feeling just in general. Just identifying and knowing, okay, I'm feeling really frustrated and that's okay.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of the name it to tame it idea. And it's interesting because as we begin to name it, what that emotion is or what we're feeling or why we're feeling that way, and, kind of bring some logic into the storm.
Right.
We don't want to get too much into our brain, but kind of bring some logic. But as we begin to name it, we have those wheels, the emotion wheels.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've seen them as pillows. I want to get a pillow from my office that has all those emotions. Like, everything comes up, for some people, high emotion comes up as anger. Like if they're frustrated, if they're sad, it all comes through as anger. Or for some people, it all comes through as panic. So like taking a moment and evaluating, naming it to taming it, and taking a moment, like, what is it I'm actually feeling?
Right.
That kind of like cuts through some of the initial panic.
100%. Like what's under the anger?
Mm-hmm.
What's this rooted in? I think that's really important.
And, sometimes it's very understandable and you should feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Anger has anger, like Amy, also has bad rap,
mm-hmm.
because anger is a great emotion. Anger is there is righteous anger.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be angry. Some people get angry and they panic, but it's okay to be angry. One of the things I tell, some of my Christian clients, like Jesus got angry. There is a righteous anger. He knocked over the tables at the temple.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a righteous anger to this, and it's okay to be angry about some things, because I can understand why you'd be angry, because that would make anyone angry.
Mm-hmm.
So naming it to taming it, that's one great tool that we use with our clients.
I really do like it. And I think in a way it's empowering to allow yourself to feel the feeling and know that it's okay to feel that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, the next thing would be anchors. Like, what do we use when we realize that, we are in this stressed state, when we realize that there is our calmness is getting stormed. What do we use to anchor? How do we anchor? We talked a little bit about the scaling and, scaling 0 to 10, and 10 is the most stressed you've ever been in your life. Maybe it's a panic attack in the middle of the mall, or the middle of a shopping center. And 0 is you're about to fall asleep because you're so calm. What is your stress level right now?
Mm-hmm.
And like knowing your stress levels and knowing your stress level, I'm going to get, for me, I run about a 5, maybe a 5 or a 6. What's your stress level?
Oof. I feel like it depends on the situation or the day, but yeah, probably like 5 or 6, I would say.
And for me, if I'm a 7, I need to be careful
Mm-hmm.
because the trick to scaling and the trick to being body aware is noticing noticing you're stressing before you stress.
Right.
Because once Amy gets out of control, it's over.
Yeah.
You can't control.
No.
You've no telling what's going to come out of your mouth.
Right.
But identifying that, I'm getting stressed. And if you do your scaling, if you ask yourself, what is my stress level? Maybe every time you eat, maybe when you get in the shower, and you begin to notice your stress levels, like, I'm a 6 or I'm a 7. I think I better go for a little walk. Or I better do some breathing. I better use one of my anchors.
Mm-hmm. And I think also too, we talked about this before, the same as coping skills, but figuring out what works best for you. Because what might work for me might not work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. But knowing, okay, I'm getting to that 7. This is not an ideal place to be. What is my like go-to? I know that this typically helps me or this typically works for me.
Well, if there was a recipe that worked for every single person, our jobs would be really easy.
Oh, yes, that would be lovely. But
the uniqueness of humans is what makes it so. There's a different map for each person as far as what works, what's going to calm them, what's going to get their scaling number down. Now, for anchors, there are body anchors, there are sensing anchors, like dealing with our senses, and there is also kind of meaningful anchors that maybe connect us to something that's meaningful, to maybe a phrase or maybe our purpose. Or let's talk a little bit about body anchors, like putting your feet on the floor.
I really am a big fan, and again, I've talked about this before, but utilizing something cold, so some form of cold therapy or cold exposure. So, if you're in a setting where you can hold an ice cube in your hand for a couple of seconds, run your wrists under cold water, putting an ice pack on your chest for a minute or two, I think that's a really great one. If you can do, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but tapping, I'm a big fan of tapping.
Emotional freedom technique. Yeah.
Can you tap along your collarbones for a minute or two and kind of just really like feeling in the moment, like, okay, like I'm here, it's okay, everything is figure outable, but also being able to validate your own emotion as well, I think is important. But when it comes to those body anchors, like what feels best for you? Do you need to get outside? Do you need to have a cup of tea? Like, what are the things that make you personally feel calm and regulated?
To kind of recover, to get your margins back, to kind of recover from that stress point. One thing that I like with the tapping is like kind of that self-hug.
Yes.
And this is a nice rhythm, and it involves both sides of your brain.
Right. I really like that. Left brain and right brain, getting them going for sure is a great body anchor.
And then the sense anchors, like using your senses, connecting your senses to the world, because what we do with our phones and our media, and we like to escape our bodies. We like to get out of reality and jump into, maybe it's a good book, maybe which there's a lot of healthy escapes, but there's also a lot of escapes that kind of just get us away in the moment. We need to kind of like come back.
Right. I think for me, scent is a big one. I don't know why, but like the smell of a cup of coffee is so calming. Growing up, my parents always drank coffee in the morning, and it was like a slow Saturday. And to me, that's just so comforting. And when I am having a tough day, I probably have a little too much coffee. But just like that
kind of backfires on you.
Yeah. But just like the smell and that sensory is just so comforting. And again, figuring out what works for you. But I think, can you smell something? Can you feel something, right? Like a different texture, something that is that grounding for you.
Absolutely. Kind of get your senses
Right.
reconnected to the real world, bringing you back into the now.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is something meaningful or something, this could be, a prayer or a mantra or, just even like your goals or if what you feel like your purpose is to kind of remind you like what you're here for,
Yeah. I know for myself, the serenity prayer is a big one. But also too the mantra of like everything is figure outable.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and oftentimes there are controllables and then there's things that you can't control. So how do you accept and make peace with those things that you cannot control?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the things I can control, the serenity prayer, help me to identify, God grant me the ability to control the things I can control,
Mm-hmm.
to let go of the things I can't control. And I'm badly butchering this.
No,
and the wisdom to know the difference.
right.
Because there's a lot of things that we work on controlling in our lives that are not controllable.
Right. Which is hard. That's hard. So again, the wisdom to know the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Very important.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, we've had those clients. I've had clients that spent years, literally years, trying to control something that wasn't controllable,
Mm-hmm.
or trying to figure out a person who's not figure outable. And that all gets back to our margins. That all gets back to like having a place of peace in our life and having the ability to not be pushed to the point where we can't, that we can't handle one more thing.
Right.
And margins, I think a good way to look at margins is like having a cup of water. Like if we have half a cup of water and we pour half a cup of water in, nothing happens. It just raises to the top. But if we have 3/4 a cup of water and we pour half a cup of water in, it overflows. So keeping that kind of like giving yourself the room to deal with things as they come up.
Right. Which to tie back into boundaries, that's why boundaries are so important. So that your cup isn't overflowing and you're not overwhelmed and you're knowing what those margins are and what you can handle and what you can't.
And then lastly, returning to the calm. Life is messy. Life is messy. We can't expect to always have our life calm, and having that kind of place of peace and that place of calm. How do we, once we find ourselves once we get that phone call, once we get that, why did you not do this? You promised this. Once we get something that literally happens that takes us out of our place of peace, that idea of being able to return. How do we get back there? And honestly, it's okay not to go back right away. It's okay to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sitting with the discomfort for a little while.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes people who aren't comfortable being uncomfortable don't work through the things they need to work through. And that's a whole nother year of therapy. We got our work cut out for us.
We definitely do, for sure. But no, I think it's a skill to be able to sit in the discomfort and to explore those feelings and maybe why I'm feeling that way.
Mm-hmm.
And using your tools and your skills to hopefully then return back to your state of calm.
Yeah, I think that idea of being comfortable in the uncomfortable and evaluating why am I not comfortable, and a lot of times if you're not in a good place or if something happens that takes you into that place of stress, you're not going to have time to evaluate anything.
Right.
You just know you're not comfortable. And that's okay. It's okay.
It's okay to not be okay.
It's okay to not be okay. So, with this series of the calm code and making a place of calm and protecting that place of calm and understanding that place of calm, I think this is just a basic tool, a basic skill that like everyone can use. And we all struggle with this in different ways, and we all have different parts of this that we struggle with, but everyone can use this.
Right. I really think everyone can benefit from it.
What would you say? What would be your biggest advice to someone who's like, they come into your office and they say, I have some real issues. I am stressing out all the time. I'm not being able to deal well with my boundaries. What would you tell them? Where do they start?
Again, I think name it to tame it. We're feeling stress. What's under that? Let's pull out the feelings wheel. Where is the stress? Is it rooted in anger? Is it rooted in sadness? Let's start there.
Kind of understanding yourself and just evaluating where you are and where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is so important, and that's what we do with so many of our clients. But, I have to say, sometimes people are in the middle of a crisis. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're a year in before you can start to actually name it to tame it.
Right.
You're a year in because, if you're in the middle of a crisis, you have to deal with the crisis.
Right.
If you're in survival mode, survival mode is survival mode. All of your energy goes to surviving. And I just had a client that it was a client, a couples counseling, and they were so excited because they got out of survival mode. They recognized that they had been in survival mode really since the pandemic, since 2020. So they had years of being in survival mode, and they're like, you know what? I think we're not having to survive anymore. That's a different being in survival mode and just living life and being able to, look at thriving. Mm-hmm. That's a whole different way to live.
Right. Completely different ball game for sure. But I think that again, if you're meeting a client where they're at and they are in survival mode, that's all the more reason to jump into what we just ran through. The coping skills, the grounding techniques. What are the things that are going to help you physically and emotionally re-regulate so that you can get that logic part of your brain to kind of turn back on.
Well, and one of the sad things about being in survival mode is sometimes people get so used to being in survival mode, that's just what they do. Mm-hmm. They don't have to be, but they just get used to dealing with, putting out the brush fires and dealing with the crisis at hand, and they can't get on top of it and they can't get ahead of it. And it's not that they don't have the resources to do it. It's just that's how they live their life and they don't see a different way.
Well, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to stop. It's uncomfortable to break that cycle.
Well, here's to helping people break that cycle, and here's to supporting them and supporting us as we work towards thriving ourselves.
Yes, definitely.
We got this.
Yes.
You got this.
Thank you for joining us on The Therapist's Couch, presented by the Sozo Wellness Institute. We hope today's conversation offered you insight, inspiration, and a sense of connection on your journey toward authentic living. If you found value in this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it with someone who might benefit. To continue the conversation and access additional services, follow us on Instagram or TikTok at the.therapists.couch or visit our website at sozowellnessinstitute.com. Until next time, please be well.